Real quick, before we get into the Season 3 recap, if you need a Season 2 recap of Secession, just hit the little tab in the upper right-hand corner. It'll take you to my Season 2 recap. Season 3, however, picks up right where Season 2 left off, with Kendall dropping that bombshell on national television. Everybody's kind of in panic mode. That includes Shiv, Roman, Tom, Carl, Jerry, Hugo. I'm probably missing one or two, but most of the figureheads from Waystar Royco. They've all cut the vacation short, and they're waiting on one person, Logan Roy. They're also waiting on some planes to kind of disappear. Nobody knows the game plan, though. Nobody except Logan. When he arrives, he still doesn't answer the question of where they're going. Just getting in a van and heading off so they can wait for the planes. Because truthfully, he hasn't decided yet. Back in New York, Kendall, Greg, Jess, and Carolina get in a car to head to Waystar so that Kendall can, quote, take over the company. But when they get in the car, Carolina reminds him that they're in a company car. And since he just opened up the company to investigation, he probably is no longer an employee of the company. This leads Kendall to ask Carolina if she's with him, and when she can't give a good enough answer, he completely kicks her out of the car. Now that Kendall seems to have his inner circle, he, along with Greg and Jess, head off. But as he's trying to gauge the reaction of his bombshell, he gets a phone call from Logan. So he hands the phone off to Jess to kind of mediate. And Logan called not to rip his son, but to say, hey, decent move, hat tip, but this could get really bad for me, so why don't you retract, and there's probably a deal here. Kendall, however, doesn't give in, saying that he's going to talk to the government and would probably be a wise decision for Logan to step down. That's when the conversation gets pretty ugly. Logan then hangs up the phone call and gets with all the figureheads, and Jerry is going through just how they play this with the Department of Justice. Her plan is to do an internal investigation, tell the Department of Justice they were completely blown away by the allegations, and they're planning on thoroughly investigating them. Pose the question, do they actually have to cooperate with the government? Roman suggests they just don't cooperate at all, but Jerry tries to let him know this is the U.S. government we're talking about. Kind of have to cooperate. We don't know what they have or what they might get. Logan ends up asking Roman, what's our story here? And Roman says Kendall is exploiting these poor women, and that's sad, but he's very unwell. He's a junkie. He blew it. In terms of the papers, they're fake or stolen, if they even exist at all. And if they do exist, you can go after Kendall for corporate theft. For Roman, the play is easy. You completely obliterate Kendall. Logan then asks about how the stock price is doing, and it's about the same, but Frank does let him know that a lot of hedge funds have already planned on what happens if Logan isn't there. Roman then asks, what if you just called the attorney general and yell at him? Would that be okay? But Logan says, no, we're going to go above that. Get me the president on the line. They then get ready to pile on into a plane. But as they're walking over to the planes, Jerry lets him know that she couldn't get the president. She could get somebody else, but not the president. And Logan doesn't want to talk to that person, so he tasks Jerry with talking to this woman and finding out exactly what the attorney general or the Department of Justice plans on doing about the accusations. And the woman on the other line lets him know that the attorney general isn't the person they have to worry about. It's the deputy attorney general, a woman named Marilyn. But as they're getting out of the vans, she gets a phone call from Kendall, letting her know that there'll be a spot for her in the new company. He also did this with Frank earlier. So as Kendall heads to Waystar, he's trying to get his ducks in a row. The one thing about Kendall is, though, he's going to have to find another headquarters because Jess, Greg, and Kendall realize that his access has definitely been pulled. He doesn't want to get out of the car and be embarrassed, so with nowhere else to turn, he's going to head to his ex-wife's house. There's not only a change of plans with Kendall, there's also a change of plans with Logan. They were all planning on originally going to New York. Now, ever since talking to that woman in the government, kind of freaked Logan out, so he's changed plans completely. The first wave is going to go to Sarajevo, which is beautiful this time of year. And the first wave is going to include Logan, Tom, Frank, Hugo, and Carl. It's really just a boys' club. The second group is to find their own country. Logan provided them a list of a bunch of countries, and Shiv figured out that it was all countries that don't have extradition to the U.S. The only person not going is Connor, who is tasked with staying back and, quote, holding down the fort. But before they leave, Logan realizes he's probably going to need a lawyer for this. Jerry suggests someone named Lisa Arthur. She's got a lot of credibility. She's probably the best in the business. Not only that, it also helps with the fact that Shiv knows her. She's kind of a friend. Because of that, he asks Shiv to handle it, get Lisa. That's going to require her to go back to New York. So scrap all those countries with the extradition. Logan once again changes plans and sends Shiv, Roman, and Jerry back to New York to manage the New York operations. Everybody then piles into the planes and wheels up. They go their separate ways. While in the air, Logan has decided that he's going to have 3 dominant firms on retainer. That way, Kendall can't hire him. The next best 5 after that, while he's not going to have them on retainer, he's going to have them doing something, so it'll be a conflict of interest. Kendall also can't hire them. He wants to get an emergency board meeting together to talk to the big shareholders. And to ease their concerns, he's going to tell them that he's going to step back as CEO. So that means they have to find a new CEO. It's really going to be a name only because Logan plans on having a lot of input on what happens, but he knows that to keep the shareholders happy, he can no longer be acting CEO. When he asks them to throw out names, Carl throws out his, Frank throws out his, but the reality is this is going to come down to Shiv, Roman, or Jerry. That's it. And Tom excuses himself to go to the bathroom to call Shiv and let her know that Logan is 30,000 feet above the air trying to figure out who's going to replace him. He really called to find out if she would even want it because you're kind of walking into a disaster, but she lets him know, absolutely I want it. When she returns back to her cabin with Roman and Jerry, Roman inquires as to what that phone call was about, and Shiv lies. But Shiv is unaware of the fact that Frank just texted Jerry about the fact that Logan's picking a new CEO. So whoever's going to be the new CEO is currently flying back to New York. Logan and his group then touch down in Sarajevo, head to a hotel, and continue to talk about who would make the best CEO. Tom, who had told Shiv that he had no interest in the job, starts saying that he likes all of the possible candidates. And that piques Logan's interest because he thinks that Tom is doing the opposite, say how he likes everybody when in reality he wants the job for himself. It seems like Logan's just kind of messing with Tom, and they go back to talking about the 3 leading candidates. But that's when Logan gets a phone call from Roman, campaigning for the job, or at least kind of. He tells Logan that he wants the job, but if he doesn't get it, he thinks that maybe he could learn under the tutelage of Jerry. One person he doesn't think should get the job is Shiv. Logan hears him out, but as soon as the phone call ends, he tells the group Roman's out. Logan then calls Shiv and lets her know that she has to bring Lisa home. So as soon as Shiv touches down in New York, that's the first thing she's going to do. One person that's already in New York is Kendall. He sequestered himself in Reva's house to avoid the media, and Reva has been extremely supportive. Kendall interviews a PR firm, although it seems like he already has a pretty good idea of what he wants them to do. And he's waiting on some other meetings, which one of them includes a meeting with Lisa Arthur. It does get a little awkward, though, for Reva. It is her house. It is her ex-husband. And Kendall invites Naomi over, but Reva puts on a good face, although she does get really pissed off when Naomi orders Greg to open up a pretty sentimental bottle of wine to Reva. Although Reva just lets it brush off her back, lets Kendall do what he needs to do. As I said, very supportive. But before Lisa heads over to meet with Kendall, she gets a surprise meeting from her friend Shiv. And right off the bat, Lisa lets Shiv know, I can't give your father any legal advice. She tells Shiv she just doesn't think she fits. But Shiv also came for herself. Shiv is torn as to what to do. In one situation, she comes out of this thing as the CEO, or she might have to leave Waystar to protect her reputation. Shiv starts to kind of ramble on the fact that she doesn't really know what to do, and Lisa cuts her off and says, I cannot give you legal advice, and I do not suggest that you give me any confidential information. And that tips off Shiv that Lisa has been hired by Kendall, which blows Shiv's mind. Unfortunately, Shiv has to leave that meeting and let Logan know that Lisa isn't with her. And now that Shiv failed, Logan ends up calling Jerry and letting Jerry know that she got the job. She's going to be CEO. And Roman is thrilled, mainly because Shiv didn't get it. He actually calls Shiv up and is gloating about the fact that she didn't get the job. And that's when Shiv instructs her driver, you know what, change of plans, and gives him a new direction to head to. Later that night, Lisa heads to Reva's place to meet with Kendall. And right off the bat, Lisa lets him know that this is a preliminary conversation, so no confidential stuff. And Kendall does his best to sell it, telling Lisa that he thinks she's a superstar and she could be the one to help take down Logan. It would really be the pinnacle of her career. While Lisa's flattered, she tries to get more of an understanding of the situation. And what is going to make it tough is the fact that Kendall wants to take down Logan without implicating himself. He also doesn't want to damage the company so badly that he loses control in the shareholders meeting. So it's a very complex situation. Kendall, though, tells her, I will do whatever you want me to do. I'm your puppet. Lisa starts giving him some advice, and it seems like Kendall has found his lawyer. But it doesn't take too long for the news that Jerry is going to be the acting CEO to start leaking out. And Logan doesn't really care about that, but what he does care about is when Hugo tells him that Lisa Arthur is going to represent Kendall. And he gets real pissed off at that. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. But once again, thank you for checking out this recap.